welcome back to K24 Evening Edition. Thank you very much for staying with us and watching K24 TV. Let's now talk about this BBI report. After the launch, what next for the country? Joining me in studio right now is Kamotho Waiganjo. He's a constitutional lawyer and he was a commissioner at the Commission on Implementation of the Constitution, also known as CIOC. Mr. Kamotho, thank you very much for making time and joining us on K24 TV. Very quickly, I know the conversation that is out there is about a possible referendum, or a referendum is very imminent. Before we get there, I want to know from you, have you read the document and what do you feel about it?
Yes, I have. And I think on the whole, it's a good document. In the sense that it doesn't fundamentally alter us from the direction of reform that we have taken. It makes some proposals that fill some of the gaps that were there in the Constitution 2010. It makes some recommendations that are administrative, that are positive. It still requires some panel beating in some areas, of course. But I think on the whole, it's a positive development. It doesn't take us backwards, it takes us forwards. But we are a long way from implementing some of its recommendations. The advantage is a significant portion of its recommendations don't actually require any changes in the law. In fact, a lot of them emphasize what's already in the law. It says 70% of the money, only 70% of our budget should be used in recurrent expenditure. That's already in the law. So implement it. And there are a couple of other things. Changes in the educational system, ensuring we are teaching ethics, looking for a shared history so that we don't have a contested history. You don't need to changes in the law. So there are some things that government can start implementing now. Some other issues just require statutory changes. You need changes in the law. That doesn't even require going to the people. Parliament can actually do that and change those,
What are those issues that you mentioned? I'm interested to know that some of these issues that you say require panel beating.
Well, there are a couple of them. I could give you a couple. If you look, for example, at the issue of the question of the leader of the official position, very important and progressive development from where I sit, because that's one of those things that we left out, where part of the reason why people, losing contestants in the presidency have no incentive to accept results, is because once they accept the results, they have nowhere to go. That's a reality. And don't forget that the way our voting patterns go, that is someone who commands 40–45% of the support in this nation. To tell them to go back to the village, that's asking for too much. It makes it easier for them then to keep pushing. But if we give profile to the office of the leader of the official opposition, then it means that that person not only has a place to go, but also means that that office has profile to politically challenge government. If you look at our history, almost all our presidents at some point have, other than I suppose President Moi and President Kenyatta, Honorable Moi Kibaki was leader of the official opposition. Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta was leader of the official opposition. Honorable Raila Odinga has at some point been the leader of the official opposition. So in a sense, that is also the place where we groom and grow and see your leadership potential. Now, the only problem in the way the proposal has been made, that yes, we deal with number one, but remember that those people come as a team. We have a president and a deputy. What do we do with number two? And remember that that deputy also commands a significant political constituency. So you
is that structure, since we are talking even about the executive, is that structure as proposed good for the country?
I think it is. I think you see what we have ended up having is a position which has no political teeth. When you look at who is the leader of the official opposition, the leader of the opposition is the leader of the minority. He's a low-ranking member politically, in terms of political metal. He's not somebody who can face up to government at a political level. He doesn't command the sort of profile that the losing presidential candidate has. So in a sense, enhancing that not only gives someone a place to go, but more importantly, it gives strength to the ability to hold government accountable. If you look at the question of expansion of the executive and the system that we have created, it is not a parliamentary system. What we have done is expanded the executive slightly by creating an office called the Prime Minister. We need to ask the question of the value of that place, of that office. We need to ask what else can we do so that it does not create possible dissension. For example, we are assuming that the party that elects a president will always be the majority in parliament. What if it's a minority? It then would mean that the president and the prime minister are in different parties. Are we anticipating the possibility of coalition governments and all the implications of those? And those are things that we need to talk about.
That confusion, I think, has not come out clear with Kenyans, because they're confused about who does what position is stronger than the other.
Yes.
But before we belabor that, point, I just want to know, Kenyans have a month to read this 156-page document.
Yes.
There's fear that politicians may hijack the process of, for Kenyans to understand this document and for Kenyans to embrace this document. What advice is it that you're going to give Kenyans right now, going forward?
One of the challenges is that there are two problems with a document of this nature. One is that the political issues become very loud and they take all the oxygen in the discussion, so that the focus now becomes about office of the prime minister and all those other issues. And we forget that that document makes very many other useful proposals that are more beneficial to the country and to its citizens than actually those. But the idea is that a lot of the contestation is going to be on the big political office questions. There are questions about devolution. I think one of the most progressive things that the document does is it enhances the revenue allocation to counties by saying a minimum 35%. Right. That is very, very useful. We believe that inclusivity, true inclusivity in this country, is about empowering devolved governments. If people of Marsabit are ever going to see government, they're probably going to see government if we enhance devolution. But those sorts of conversations can very easily be forgotten. The document talks about rationalizing government, ensuring that we don't have a myriad of parastatals that are milking the public purse and are not adding value. It doesn't, people are not going to concentrate on those issues. The soft issues, like the one I talked about looking for a shared history. How do we ensure that our history is not contested? Who are the Mau Mau? Who are the home guards? What happened in our post-independence? Why did Tomboya die? Those sorts of conversations are useful in building one shared history that we can all own, warts and all. So my worry is not just that politicians will hijack the conversation, but they'll hijack the political aspects of the conversation. And very many other things which are more useful to the citizen will be lost.
Talking about that,
yes.
Public officers, there's a proposal that public officers will not be allowed to do business with government.
Yes.
What do you think about that proposal?
I think it's a positive thing. I think I would be worried if they said public officers cannot do business at all. But in terms of doing business with government, I think there's an issue there, because even though I recognize that it is possible to do with, I may not be, there may be no conflict of interest if government that I'm working with is different from the one I am sitting in. Right. The truth of the matter is government is not that very big. And there's going to be continuous conflict of interest if I'm also working with my colleagues, because scratch my back, I scratch yours. So it's a positive thing from where I sit. And they're, by the way, they're very, even the proposal, I'm not sure how workable it is. Right. That people who are in the public service, their children or whatever, should be able to apply and utilize public facilities like public schools and public hospitals. I am not sure, because then you also don't want to interfere with people's freedoms. But I think the spirit of it is right. As to whether it's enforceable is a different question. But I think it should be encouraged, even if it's for us to publicize every year that the following public servants, their children go to these schools. Some of these things are healthy in terms of facilitating a discussion about the kind of Kenya that we want to have.
Yeah. Concerns about jitters of the committee of experts, members who will fine-tune the report or advise on the implementation of this report. There are some members who are fearful, so to speak, about the constitution of that committee of experts. Who do you think should be part of that committee?
One, inevitably, we're going to have a technical team. Whether that technical team is going to be the BBI reloaded, I don't know, or whether it's a different team. But at some point, a lot of those proposals will have to be converted into statutory proposals. That can be done through existing government machinery, and some of them will have to be converted into constitutional amendments. And remember, by the way, the conversation, this is not the final document. It is not the law of the Medes and the Persians that can be changed. This document can be changed. It can be improved. Once that process of improving it happens, between now and then, once that is done, somebody will need to sit down and convert that into a document. Even more importantly, depending on what in terms of strategy, what the owners of this document, which process they decide to take it through. Because whichever process they choose has implications. Let me give you an example. If, for example, I was sitting there and I thought that this document might be difficult to get 2/3 majority in Parliament for constitutional amendments, right, then what I would do is I'll take it the route of a popular initiative. In which case then, the popular initiative is not a government initiative, which means it needs to be owned by somebody who then takes it to the people, gets 1 million signatures, takes it to the county assemblies, because then you only need a majority in Parliament for it to pass.
In fact, I wanted to ask you about that specific question about the referendum. Do we need one? Is the country ready for a referendum? But what I'll ask is, between Parliament initiative and the popular initiative, which is more tedious?
One, it depends on what are the issues in the document first. And I think that's the first thing we need to establish. If the issues in the document require a referendum, it doesn't matter. And remember, we have certain protected issues. If those issues are there in that document, then it doesn't matter whether it's a parliamentary initiative or a popular initiative, it must go to a referendum. My reading of the document at this stage tells me there are no issues that have been placed there that require a referendum on the face of it. So that's number one.
So no referendum?
No. I can tell you a situation where even with a popular initiative, there may be a referendum.
Okay.
So let's assume you go the parliamentary route, which means you prepare a constitutional amendment bill, you take it to the House. It needs to be passed by 2/3 in each House, in both the Senate and the National Assembly. If it fails to pass in any of those two houses, it dies.
Right.
So that's it. So that's a risk you take if you decide to go to Parliament. You better be sure that you can get 2/3 of all the members to support it, and that's not easy, because sometimes even getting quorum is difficult. But you can decide, instead of going that, you go the popular route. What do? You 1 million signatures, easy to get. Take it to half of the county assemblies, not very difficult. If it's owned by significant members of the political class, it will go. Then you take it to Parliament. Now, if you take it to Parliament, there are two things that can happen. If you take it and it passes by Parliament, that's it. And it only requires a majority members. It doesn't require 2/3, which means the threshold is lower, so it's an easier route. If it is rejected in Parliament, it doesn't die. It goes to a referendum.
Okay.
It is in the referendum that then determines. So that's why I'm saying it depends on which route strategically government or whoever the promoters of the bill are decide to go. If they don't think that you can pass 2/3, then it is easier strategically to go the route of a popular initiative, because then worst case scenario, even if Parliament rejects it, it will go to the people.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Kamotho Waiganjo. Our time is up. Kamotho Waiganjo is a constitutional lawyer who is giving us insights about the BBI report. And we did ask you, do you support a referendum after the launch of the BBI report? Keep tweeting us at K24 TV. The Facebook page is K24 TV. The SMS number is 21222. Thank you again, Kamotho Waiganjo, for your time. Let's take a break. Business is next.